Hi guys, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel. For today's video I wanted to share with you the books that I am the most excited to read in 2018, and I sat down and made a list of books that I really wanted to read this year a couple of weeks ago in order to write a blog post, and surprise surprise, some of those books have changed already. There are just so many books that I wish that I had read already, that I wish that I read last year, or books that are coming out this year that I keep hearing about and I just really want to get to. So think of this as a kind of fluid list, but these are some of the books that I want to read this year. So let's start with a chunker, and I didn't make very many reading resolutions this year. I pretty much made two. One was that I wanted to finish reading the series that I have started, and the second one was that I wanted to reread a couple of books. And the series that I want to reread this year, and whether I manage to read them all this year, is a subject that's still up for debate, but that is the Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones series by George R.R. Martin. Now, I read these books originally when they first came out, and what I used to do, and I think I've said this before, is every time a new book in the series came out, I would go back to the beginning and I would reread them all. And this was prior to me having children, so I just had a lot more time on my hands. And I realise that the final book in this series hasn't been released yet, and who knows if it will be this year, who knows if it will be in another couple of years. But what I haven't read is the final book which has been released, which is A Dance with Dragons Part 2, After the Feast. So I've read all the others, but I haven't read this one, and it has been so long that I just think that I need to go back to the beginning and start again. So my commitment for 2018 is to, if I could get the book the right way around, that would be a good start, is to go back to the beginning and start to reread these books. But I mean, the size of them, the scale of them, the complexity of them, who knows if that's something that I'm gonna succeed in doing. But I'm excited because I absolutely adore these books. George R.R. Martin is just up there with the top fantasy writers for me, so I'm very excited to go back and dive into the literary world of Game of Thrones, because obviously the television series is around, but it's not quite the same, I don't think. So yeah, this is the first book slash books slash mammoth series that I'm hoping to read this year. The next book on my list is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, and this is a recent purchase for me, but it's a book that's been on my radar for a very long time because I have heard nothing but high praise for this book from some of my closest bookish friends to just generally looking on BookTube and on Goodreads. I don't know much about it. I know it's about a Chinese American family whose daughter dies, and I think it's kind of family drama, hidden secrets type story, but yeah, I'm just really looking forward to reading it, and it doesn't seem very long. And the other thing is that Celeste Ng has released a new book. I think it's called The Fires Are Everywhere, and again there is a lot of hype around that book, and I really want to get to that this year, and I'm hoping to do that as a buddy read with some of my very close bookish friends, so I want to get this one read first. Then another book which is going to be no surprise to anybody if you watched my latest bookish haul, but that is Homegoing by Yarg Jesse. Again, much loved, much hyped book on BookTube or in the book community as a whole, and one which I really have no excuse for having not purchased and read yet, and one that I definitely want to get to in 2018 because I have heard nothing but fantastic things about this book. It is basically the story of two families, and it begins with two sisters, one who is the wife of a slave trader and one who is sold into slavery, and it follows successive generations of that family, and basically I think how the beginnings of their stories impacted and influenced on the future generations of their family. So I just, yeah, nothing but high praise for this book. I have not heard anybody say a bad thing about it, so I'm just really interested to kind of dive in for myself and see what I think about it. So another one that I definitely want to read in 2018. And the final book which I actually own at the moment, which I want to read this year, is The Enchanted by Renee Denfeld, and I don't know much about this book, and I came across it last year quite by accident I think, and I haven't really heard that many people talk about it, and So my understanding of the synopsis is a little bit vague, but I believe that our protagonist is a man who is in a maximum security prison on death row, and for many years he has been a mute, but he kind of listens to the stories of the people that he comes into contact with in his very limited existence. So I think that that is one of the prisoners next door to him. I think it is a death row solicitor perhaps, and that is pretty much all I know. I've heard that the narration is a little bit different, that it's perhaps quite a dark, stark, grim story. I think it may have a mild fantasy magical realism element to it. I'm not really sure, but the very fact that I know so little about it, and that even reading around on Goodreads and on Amazon it's not massively clear exactly what the story is about, has me really intrigued. I mean, it just says on the front, when you walk on death row, you look for the light, the enchanted Renee Denfeld. And I believe that Renee Denfeld might be a death row investigator. And I think she's written some non-fiction books kind of relating to death row, but this is her first fiction. So just all of that has me really intrigued to get to this. This was a book that I got for Christmas this year. And yeah, I'm just really interested in what it's going to be about. Okay, then moving on, there are a number of books which I want to read this year, which I don't yet own. And I said I only made 2 resolutions this year, but a kind of third one that I have is that I want to try and read the majority of books I already have on my TBR shelf. But there are some which I have on pre-order because I'm just super excited to read them. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of those. So the first one is The Cactus by Sarah Haywood, and this is released in July, and it has been compared to The Rosie Project by Don Tillman, which is a book that I absolutely adored. And just reading the synopsis, I'm just on my phone if you can see me looking down, it says, people aren't sure what to make of Susan Green. Family and colleagues find her prickly and hard to understand, but Susan makes perfect sense to herself, and that's all she needs. At 45, she thinks her life is perfect, as long as she avoids her feckless brother Edward a safe distance away from in Birmingham. She has a London flat, which is ideal for one, a job that suits her passion for logic, and a personal arrangement providing cultural and other more intimate benefits. Yet suddenly faced with the loss of her mother and implausibly with the possibility of becoming a mother herself, Susan's greatest fear is being realised. She is losing control. And this is a debut novel by Sarah Haywood, and yeah, I'm just really looking forward to reading it. The next one on my list is Assassin's Fate by Robin Hobb, and this has already been released in hardback, but in March it will be released in paperback, and I have the other 2 books in this trilogy in paperback, so I have been anxiously awaiting a release date for this final book. It's the final book in her Fitz and the Fool trilogy, which is the final trilogy in her kind of overarching Elderling series, I believe, which consists of the Farseer books, the Tourneyman series, and Fitz and the Fool. Possibly anything else that fits into the Rainwild Chronicles. The Live Ship Traders are all in that world. So this may well be the final book that she ever writes, set in kind of this magical world that she has created. I'm not sure, but it's definitely the final book which features Fitz and the Fool. And considering that I have been in floods of tears at the end of every trilogy that she has written which features Fitz and the Fool, and I'm probably never going to get to read about them again, I just think that this book is going to break me. And I hope that she concludes it in a way that is satisfactory, because there is one thing about Robin Hobb, that she does not take the satisfactory narrative route. She never goes for the happy ending. She never goes for the way that you think she's going to go. She always just throws a curveball in at the last minute, and it drives me bonkers. And I love it, but it drives me bonkers. So I'm really hoping that it ends in a way that I love. But yeah, I'm just really excited for that one. Then we have Moonshine by Jasmine Gower, which will be released in February. And again, I think that this is a debut novel, but let me just read the synopsis to you because it just sounds absolutely fascinating. Okay, It says, Daisy's starting a new job and stylish city life, but mage hunters out for her dark magic threaten to destroy her vogue image. In the flourishing metropolis of Sut City, a fantastical version of 1920s Chicago, progressive ideals reign and the old ways of magic and liquid mana are forbidden. Daisy Dell is a modern girl, stylish, educated and independent, keen to establish herself in the city, but reluctant to give up the taboo magic inherited from her grandmother. Her new job takes her to unexpected places and she gets more attention than she had hoped for. When bounty hunters start combing the city for magicians, Daisy must decide whether to stay with her new employer, even if it means revealing the grim source of her dazzling power. I just think that it sounds quirky, it sounds different, it sounds interesting. I love the idea that it's kind of a modern magical world but set against the backdrop of 1920s America. I just think it sounds really interesting and I cannot wait to read it. And then the final book that I have on this list is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, which again has been released but comes out in the UK in paperback in March, so it's one that I have on pre-order. And I haven't actually read Laini Taylor's original trilogy, but I just have this feeling that I'm going to love her writing. Several of the people who have recommended her books to me are people whose opinion I really trust, and I would like to get to her original trilogy sometime this year, but the concept of Strange the Dreamer just really appeals to me. But I didn't want to get it in hardback, I wanted to wait and get the paperback, so I have it on pre-order. I believe that it's about a young scholar who has been studying a lost civilization or lost city for most of his life, and then he is given the opportunity to go there and see what happened and study it, and a whole series of events unfolds from that point. I've tried really hard to avoid any spoilers, but whenever I've heard anybody talk about it, I've just been so desperate to read it and so excited about the premise. So I have it on pre-order. Whether I read that first or whether I try and squeeze in reading Laini Taylor's original trilogy first, I'm not sure. I am a bit of a stickler for reading authors' works in the order that they were written, just because I think that an author's style and the way that they write and the complexity of the way that they write tends to improve as they go along. But I don't know, I'm really excited to own it. I'm really excited to read it, and honestly I could have talked about 10, 20, 30 more books that I really want to read this year, but I've squeezed it right down to these few. But do let me know if you have read any of them. Do let me know what you are planning on reading in 2018, even though that probably won't help me because I'll end up wanting to buy more books and add more books to my list. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to give me the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you are interested in more videos from me, and I will see you all soon.